Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife. We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
Both my parents express love in different ways.
And I have to foster an environment where she's comfortable telling me what she really thinks, not what I want to hear.
I love how you've come together and you have created your own culture, so to speak, right? And you've taken the great from both sides.
No, I like to say, okay, at the end of the day, moving forward, honey, I'll be sure I do this. Does that make sense to you? And then she'll say, yeah, I see that would be helpful to me, and I'll do this.
It's that commitment to be able to listen, but also the time commitment.
Put herself where other men would perhaps hit on her, because I'm probably slightly jealous, I guess. Very little, but I think I'm more jealous than she is.
We'll get started right after this message. If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to pre-order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at MatthewPHoffman.com. Again, that's MatthewPHoffman.com. And now back to the show.
Rob and Gabriela Kantor. We're so excited to have the two of you guys with us here today in Maynard, our Airstream studio.
I am so excited about this podcast because I know you guys are a kick-ass couple. We know you well, and I'm grateful that you're here with us today and that you're open to sharing with us more about your relationship, about your history together, and what makes you guys kick ass. So that's really kind of where we're going to start.
Thank you so much.
Asking
guys.
you both, what makes you a kick-ass couple? And either one of you can take that, or I want to hear it from both, actually, but whoever wants to go first.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you the opportunity to be here with you guys and just talking about our relationship. And I guess I never considered myself us as a kick-ass couple, but I think that when we look at our history and our trajectory, we've worked so hard to get better every day and get closer. And after 20 years, I can see the difference between where we were when we first got married and now.
Right. That's right. I feel the same way. I mean, we've been steadfast for 20 years to our commitment to one another and growing together. And it starts with that commitment. And I'm proud of it, our body of work. And we feel like we're leading by example, too, for not only our boys, but our friends, our community, anyone who meets us. And it's real. I mean, I'm madly in love with her, everything about her, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I'm very proud of the beautiful relationship we have.
So you would say that commitment's probably a big part of what makes you two a kick-ass couple, because Gabriela, there's no doubt you are a kick-ass. You got to embrace it. You got to open your arms.
Own it, baby.
You got to bring it and own it, baby, because you're part of that crew. That's how you guys roll.
Yeah, I think commitment's a big, it defines, every day we're committed to working on each other, working to be great examples to our children, and committed to our relationship.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're going to commitment is a huge thing, and we're going to spend some more time on that a little later. But, you've probably heard I said this with the Lucasios and other people that we talk about. Sometimes you have to go backwards to go forward and, think back and understand. And so I'd love to throw out to the two of you, and Gabriela, if you don't mind me starting with you, I'd love to know, what did love look like in your family growing up? How did you experience it in your family with your parents? What did you see, and what did love look like to you in your experience?
Yeah, I think both my parents expressed love in different ways. My dad was a very physical touch. He would always hug and say, tell me you love me. So words of affirmation as well. So he wanted the love and he asked for it. My mom, on the other hand, she would just by her actions show her love, just getting us our meals and showing that she would sacrifice for us and taking us a whole summer to my grandfather's farm and just allowing us to be free and ride horses and just, she was just more of acts of service and things that she did for us. We realized how much she loved us. And I think, yeah, it was kind of cool to have the mix of both styles.
Great. So you saw love expressed differently from your mom and dad, and they gave you a good roadmap of how that. So how do you think that seeing your mom and dad express that, how did that affect, or what did that give you to bring to your relationship? Because we each come with those unique backgrounds, right, of how we experienced it, and you arrive at this relationship and you're thinking, this is how love is expressed. Right. This is how I think it should be and what I need. So how did you bring from what you saw in your parents, forward? How did that shape love for you?
Yeah, I think I did take a little bit of both, and acts of service were huge for me. Like every time he said, "Oh, something's broken," or I don't like the way this looks," I would immediately try to fix it or try to do or change it, and that was my way of showing love. And at the same time, I also wanted that physical touch and that hug and "I love you" and the little words, because that's what I knew my dad would do with me, or he needed from me, and I needed that from him. So I think I kind of brought a little bit of both into our relationship, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that we all come to a relationship with something different, right? And maybe the way that you grew up and the way love was expressed to you is going to be very different from what it was for Rob, or maybe it's the same, but I think we all come to a relationship with an expectation, and that was what was modeled to us when we were younger.
Right.
And so, Rob, I'm just curious, what did it look like for you? What was it like in your home growing up? How did your parents express love, and just how did they relate to each other?
Yeah, interesting to look back and analyze it. My mom and dad were different, like Gabriela's parents. And in terms of my mom, it was activities with her. She would express her love to me by playing badminton or taking me on adventures or playing catch or riding bikes or climbing mountains or, going skiing and being there and hugging me and laughing and physical touch. And my dad, he expressed his love, I believe, I never asked him, but this is what I, recall in watching him, was to be a provider. It was a different generation. He was showing his love. I'm the provider. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work my way up the ranks. He worked for the federal government and provide for my family whatever they need with clothing and vacations. And he would show up at all my sporting events. He would be there. He'd physically show up, and he wasn't really expressive with words about loving, which doesn't mean he was bad. It was just different, and he felt that the best thing he could do is be the provider for the family. I had 3 older sisters, and my mom did not work, so he was the breadwinner. During that time in the 70s and 80s, and that was how he felt the best way he could express his love.
I'm curious, how did they express love with each other? What did that look like?
That's a good question. Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, I think there were some times I remember them holding hands, but I've taken a different playbook. I believe in showing my 3 sons. I have 3 boys. How to romance a woman, how to dance in the kitchen, how to hug their spouse, and how to love, and then verbally tell them that I love this hot mama jamba. I'm madly in love with your mother. I hope, guys, that you understand how important it is to pick a mate and pick someone who's kind, loving, and beautiful in every way, like their mother. I did not see that as a young man. It doesn't mean it wasn't there, but again, my parents didn't express love. They weren't overt about it. They were more behind the scenes, a little more private, I suspect. Again, I haven't asked them that, but I hope they did it privately. But I definitely not overt.
How did your parents? Yeah, Gabriela, how did you see them express love to each other when you were growing up?
Yeah, I think for me, and it's another thing that I was thinking that it's part of my love language, gifts. I saw them give each other a lot of gifts. From my mom's side, my dad was always trying a new diet, and so he would come home from work and she would have the meal from that specific diet made for him. And that was like her gift, or she would pack it for him. And then he would come home and bring flowers to her or bring just something little. And then I realized that to me, like, I appreciate that as well, like receiving it when Rob comes home with something, I saved you, half my lunch, and that's a gift. And I appreciate it so much, and it means so much to me because it meant that he sacrificed. He could have had the whole thing, but he knew that, that little half that he could save for me would be well received and would make positive deposits in my love tank.
Yeah, got to keep that tank full, right?
That's right.
So actually, you saw your mom and dad demonstrate that acts of service and gifts growing up, and that's something that became important to you.
Yeah. So I kind of maybe, I don't know if you have that expectation or because that's what you were exposed to, but yeah, it was kind of sweet. Maybe, and then a lot of hugging and in front of us, but yeah, I think it was nice to see. So when we do it in front of the kids, I know that it's going to have a positive impact on them seeing us be,
Right. If I could interject, if I could here, add to Gabriela's comment, is that when we leave the home, we don't ever leave without saying goodbye, I love you, with a kiss. Or equally as important is when we come home from work or an outing or an activity is to greet. I greet Gabriela. It's a big priority in our home is to greet one another first. It's not to take it lightly. How was your day, honey? I don't ignore her. I don't walk in and put my stuff down. I go right to her. And that's a big priority in our home when we arrive and when we leave. So like the compound effect, you do all these little things and we do it because we love each other and we enjoy doing it. But I believe that we've implemented that in our home, which has helped an already great foundation.
Yeah, not take each other for granted.
I love hearing you say that, when you see each other after a whole day has gone by, that you greet each other, or when even you're getting ready to leave for the day, you're saying goodbye. I love that you are basically letting each other know, I love you, I see you, I hear you. Those are all important things in a relationship, and just those little actions mean so much.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Fun to hear a little bit about what you guys experienced growing up, and that kind of is a natural lead into what we have in our platform, 13 pillars. And of those 13 pillars, there's 3 qualities that we really think are foundational in any successful kick-ass relationship. And the first one there's 3 C's, and the first C is commitment. And so I'd love to hear, Rob, I'd love to hear, what does commitment look like in your relationship with your wife, your number one relationship?
Great. Yeah, I'd love to share that. Number one, we're committed to each other and with God together. So when we took our wedding oath and we committed to, in front of our family and friends and to God, that we'd be committed to one another through thick and through thin. And to us, it's not just Gabriela and myself, but to God as well. And that's the ultimate commitment. And that is the foundation of our relationship. So our commitment is when things are good, when things are bad, throughout any time at all. So it's really important to us that we remind each other of that and that we keep that top of mind every day when we pray, when we have conversations, when we have conflict, when we have good times, we offer gratitude. But ultimately, it starts with our commitment to each other and with God.
Great. That's a good starting point. Foundational, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How about for you, Gabriela? What does commitment look like to you in your relationship? How do you express commitment?
Yeah, commitment for us, it's making that decision every day that we're gonna be together, that we're gonna work on with together to get better, to grow together, and it's kind of like what we've been blessed to see that our parents are still together. So that's a great example for us to say, yes, they've had hard times, they've had, struggles, but the commitment's there and they've stayed together. And so, when we ever have struggles, we always come back to, we committed before God on our wedding day 20 years ago to be together through thick and thin and good and bad and healthness and sickness. And that's I think we remind each other every day that that's what we we promise before God to each other.
So, do you guys think, in thinking about commitment, do you feel that that was something you just knew from day one, or was it something you were ignorant of, or did you have to learn? Was it a process to learn how to express and honor and develop that commitment? Like, how did you get to know how to do that or why to do that?
Right. That's a great question, Matt. I'd like to take this one, Gabriela. If I could, we think in our minds we know a lot when we're young and we're newlyweds, and what does that word mean? But for me, what it means is I had a vision. I'm committed to this woman. We're going to have a wonderful life together. But really, that's where it started. It started to learn, really, what does this look like? I had to unpack it, really, and investigate it, and really, more than investigate, that's not the right word. Let me take that back. What I mean is I had to really understand deeply, what does that look like? And by studying, become a student of becoming a great husband and becoming a great couple. That's through books, that's through mentors, that's through being around other people and replicating things that I like from other relationships. And that's the path and journey we've been on by learning and relearning and reminding. So that commitment, it's a commitment to learning and growing together through different resources. It could be great podcasts like you guys have put together, which is awesome. It's a great service that you're providing so many couples and who are doing great like us, or who need it, who not doing great, different stages. But for me, the commitment, it keeps evolving, my commitment. So now with technology, with podcasts, or with daily email reminders from Daily Dad or All Pro Dads, or for example, or other resources out there.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I'm sorry.
No, so it's for the commitment. It's a commitment to keep growing and learning about what my commitment looks like. Because it's, as our kids get older and leave for college, our commitment may change in terms of the dynamics of the home as a breadwinner, where we're going to live, what we're going to do. But ultimately, the commitment to being as a great couple and a great husband is something that I have to keep studying and keep learning.
Yeah, it's not a fixed process. What I hear you saying is it's not a fixed process. You're a student. You're always learning, and you're always investing and figuring out. And I've seen some great examples of your ongoing learning and prioritization. Can you share, Rob, a way that you have prioritized your commitment with Gabriela?
I have. Last time I sold a company a few years ago, and I asked Gabriela, "What can I do to be a better husband?" We were having a walk one day. She goes, "Can you cook more?" So I said, okay. I said, so at that point I was like maybe a first grader or second grader in terms of my abilities in the kitchen. And I engaged a local chef, and I took cooking classes 3 days a week for 8 weeks. And I learned how to cook. And I didn't brag to her and say, "Oh, honey, I'm doing all this." I just did it.
Yeah.
And I know acts of service is part of her love language, but I heard her. I asked her. When you ask somebody a question, be ready for the answer. She gave me the answer, and I took action. I'm proud of it. So she did me a favor, but ultimately, we did it for each other. It's not 50-50. It's 100%. And I have to foster an environment where she's comfortable telling me what she really thinks, not what I want to hear.
Right.
So that was something that was great.
If I may add to what you say with the commitment, yeah, for sure. It's that commitment to be able to listen, but also the time commitment, because everybody, time is so precious. Everybody's so busy doing things for others, but the time that we have together, if I'm planning to learn something, well, why can't we learn it together? We did dance lessons, which Rob, he orchestrated dance lessons for us, and that's time together, and that's building on to that commitment of, growing together, a new skill, a new. So I think commitment of your time is huge for couples, because you see a lot doing things on their own separately, and maybe they're growing, but they could be growing apart. So for us, that commitment also means devoting time to be together, whether it's learning a new skill or just learning about each other.
Sure.
And asking those questions. Are we happy?
And on the way here, just on the way here today, Gabby's like, "Hey, do you want to do this yoga on the beach?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to." So she invited me to do this yoga class on the beach. I guess next weekend. It's an early morning yoga, so the kids sleep in. We'll be there real early. But it was an opportunity that she took the initiative to find a cool activity that we can do together. We enjoy doing activities together, which are physical, for exercise, out with nature, and then we can learn together
Yeah.
a new skill or practice something that we already know a little bit about. So that was, I think, a really good example.
Yes.
I love that. I love to hear how you're looking for opportunities to do things together and thus just growing that commitment level even more. I think life's a journey, right? It really, truly, we have peaks and valleys throughout our life. And the next thing I want to talk about is while we're going through all those peaks and valleys and sort of things are happening to us, we're busy with work, we're busy with kids, we're trying to navigate a lot of different things. But we have to communicate with each other because communication is part of one of our 3 C's that we believe is one of the 3 top important pillars of a successful relationship. So I'm going to ask you, Gabriela, how do you communicate with each other? What does communication look like in your relationship? And it's probably different for both of you, but how do you communicate with Rob?
I think that's one of the biggest C's, if I may say, that where I've grown. I came from a family where the love was, maybe you weren't praised for doing a great job. It was expected. So if you got praise, was like you did something really, really special. But if you are valedictorian in your class, well, that's expected. Great, good job. But it's not said. It's kind of like understood. So I came from that and I brought that to our relationship. And, I met with someone whose love language is words of affirmation. So I learned to adapt, and I've grown so much. I look back at myself, when we first got married, how I used to communicate and how I communicate now, and how just those little things that show you're not taking someone for granted. Thanks for making breakfast this morning, honey. That was, really great. That's not overpraising. It's just acknowledging the love that was put into that breakfast, or the effort and the thought of making something special. So for me, I've grown to communicate better and just acknowledge that everybody communicates differently, and specifically with Rob, I see the difference when I, leave a note that says that I love him, or in his lunchbox, and I do those little things. I see it has a huge impact, and it makes those little deposits into his
It
love.
sounds like one of his love languages is words of affirmation.
And
so I think that's
so when you see that it has such a positive impact, yes, you're going to continue to do it, and then it becomes part of who you are after a while. So it's kind of like practice. Play how you practice.
Sure.
That's right. Yeah.
How about for you, Rob? What?
Well, I grew up in a real ethnic New York family, so if you don't like what you're wearing and you look bad, they'll tell you. So very quite verbal, expressive. Praising or criticizing, argumentative. In fact, analyzing things. And Gabriela's style is, it's not worse or better. It's just different. So I've learned to, accept her style, but at the same time work on doing my best to communicate the way she prefers to communicate. Less is more. Less overanalyzing. If we did have had a conflict or an issue, beating it to death is not going to make her happy. It's not helpful to her. So doing my best to understand that, at the same time being true to who I am and what I need, and sharing that with her in the appropriate times. Maybe not in the heat of the battle or of a conflict, but during one of our evening walks. We enjoy taking walks 4 to 5 nights a week after dinner, holding hands and listening to each other. And I'll take note of something that I need from her and I'm comfortable sharing. Hey, during that moment, I'm not sure if that was your intent, but this is how it made me feel, in a very kind, loving, tender way. And I think it's helped us a lot. And we're committed, back to the other C, we're committed to communicating in a more healthy fashion to one another.
I think it sounds like you all carve out time to communicate, which I think is really important in a relationship. We get so busy with the day-to-day that we forget that we need to sit down, or in your case, hold hands, go for a walk, and let's just talk to each other.
Right.
How was your day? What did you do today? What happened in your day that made it great? Or maybe it was something that made it challenging. I think that's an important part of a relationship is to be able to just even have the time to communicate.
Creating that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, taking the time. You guys, I think I hear Rob, you tell a lot of stories you shared today, the walks, the time together, or after the kids go to bed or before the kids are up, and really making sure you have the opportunities to have that quality communication, which really just brings you into each other's world. And, it's a great way of leaning in, because in relationships, you can either be leaning in, leaning away, or leaning against. And leaning in and having that quality communication is bringing you closer together. And I can see that. And I appreciate that you're making the commitment to do that, because it's kind of the glue, right?
Yes.
That helps keep you guys so solid. When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder how you're doing? We found that there are 13 key components that make up a thriving relationship, which is why we've created the Kickass Assessment. In this powerful free tool, you'll learn what they are and how you and your spouse are ranking in each one. And you'll get recommendations that will help you start improving today. To get your results, simply visit MatthewPHoffman.com. Again, that's MatthewPHoffman.com. It's time to start kicking ass. Let's go. And Rob, I'd love to ask you for conflict resolution, our third C. What is that? How do you guys approach conflict? Because certainly it arises. And can you think of how do you guys, or how have you learned to approach it in an effective way with each other?
Yeah, well, we've come a long way. We've come a long way, like a lot of great couples, and we consider ourselves a kick-ass couple. We've come a long way, and that's, yesterday we had a little conflict yesterday, and how we handle it is something that it's critical. So how we approach conflict is to hear the other person, make sure we don't cut them off, and hear them, and restate what we think we heard from the other person, not tell the other person they're wrong, to respect their point of view, and then share with them, hey, this wasn't my intent. This is what my intent was this. Perhaps this is what you heard. And own it. If you apologize if you hurt the other person's feelings or there's a misunderstanding, and try to be tender, try to not raise our voices, and then just try to remember that be loving and kind throughout it. It's not always easy, but and then trying to have closure. To me, it's important in conflict that I have some sense of closure. I don't like, and Gabby knows that, and she's adapted her style in conflict to share that with me. Like, hey, okay, so we talk about it, and then poof, what? No, I like to say, okay, at the end of the day, moving forward, honey, I'll be sure I do this. Does that make sense to you? And then she'll say, yeah, I see that would be helpful to me, and I'll do this. So we kind of we'll meet in the middle in a way that's a healthy, loving, godly way.
Yeah. Recognizing that you need to apologize, and then apologizing is huge. I'm curious, and I don't want to put you on the spot or make you uncomfortable, but give me an example of what an apology looks like, a good apology.
For me, I would say, look her in the eye and say, Gabriela, that was really out of line. I spoke too early. For example, the other night, okay, there was one of our boys with technology. We had some challenges, and we have not huddled up on it. And I was disappointed. And before I went to bed, I made the mistake of bringing it up at a bad time. It wasn't urgent. It did not need to be discussed before we go to bed. She was tired. I did not recognize that. And I selfishly brought it up at the wrong time because it was bothering me. I kind of vomited on her at the wrong time. So what an apology looks like, Gabriela, that was the wrong time to bring it up. I could have waited and brought it up during during one of our walks and said, this is how I feel. How do you feel? Can we make it collaborative? Can we brainstorm on this and address this, what I believe to be an issue? And so that was my apology. It was clearly the wrong time and the wrong delivery. And she interpreted it as if I just want to make a unilateral decision on like a new policy for our son. The reality is she's so smart and so wise. I like to make decisions together, in fact, we prefer that almost always. So that was an example of an apology where I owned it, took ownership on it.
Thank you.
I love what you shared, Rob, because, two of the things we talk a lot about, ignorance and prioritization. Ignorant is not a bad thing. It means you just don't know, right? And if you're I think the key, kind of the uniqueness about our platform, what we talk about is prioritization. And what I heard you say is that I wasn't prioritizing my wife by the way I was responding. I responded the way I wanted to and what I thought was best for me, regardless. And so, and you caught yourself or afterwards said, okay, maybe I wasn't doing such a good job. So let me reprioritize my spouse.
That's right. Exactly.
And say it in a different way. And I think that's the perspective that works, because when we're being selfless and working on you're filling the response that she needed, it gives her the space to hear you because you're doing it in a way that works for her, and also gives her a chance to have that reciprocity. Sure. and do it back. And I think it's there's a lot of norms maybe in social mores about, being strong. And if you apologize, strong people don't apologize. And I think it's really the opposite, is the strongest people say,
yes, for sure,
I'm wrong, or I messed up, that's or right, maybe I could have done it better. Right. It's like owning, you talked earlier about owning the mistakes. Can you think, Gabriela, of a time that that there's been a conflict, and how have you worked through that in your relationship?
Yeah, I think that apologizing and even saying, well, my intent was not to offend you, or my words, I didn't mean this, but that's what you perceive, and that's your perception of my words, and that's how you interpret it. So it's apologizing for even making the other person feel a certain way that you didn't, it was not your intention at all. So for us, conflict resolution has been learning how to have these conversations that we know are going to be tough. We know maybe it's a sore subject for one or the other, but we have certain rules that we've learned and we've implemented over time. It's like, you're not going to bring up the past. The past is the past. We're not going to, we know each other. We have certain trigger points or certain things that, he'll say or I'll say that. So we avoid those. So it's like a conscious decision. So we're going to have this discussion and this conversation, but we're not going to go, we're going to try to move forward and focus on the issue, not bring up other stuff. And so I think that's helped us so much, and just staying focused. And then for him, he applies it more than I do. Like, okay, this is what I heard you say, so you said this is what you meant. Is this what you meant? So clarifying, because a lot of times you don't clarify and just, okay, you assume, and you go through the whole discussion making assumptions. So clarifying, okay, is this what's your main concern? And so it's helped us so much, and we've definitely grown in that seat.
What about when things get heated? When things get really heated, I think that we're all human, and sometimes things escalate and voices rise. And I know for me, my heart starts to beat fast, and I can feel the anger kind of coming up within me, and it's something that I am constantly working on. So what about in the heat of the moment? How do you handle that?
I think for me, I kind of shut down, and then he'll recognize that I won't say anything that's going to bring up another conflict. I'll just kind of, and then, but I do know that makes him more upset. So I know that's one of his triggers. So it's hard. It's a hard balance, because in a way you want to do what you feel comfortable doing, and you revert to your original, whether it's a shutdown mechanism, or you just revert to what you're comfortable with and dealing with conflict. But
so you retreat. You're saying that you kind of retreat. Yeah. You just get quiet. You don't say anything. And Rob, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, in the past,
you want to keep going.
Right, exactly.
I'm not done.
Back to my origin, we'd battle, my sisters and my family. So I grew up in a home that would keep discussing and beat it to death. Pardon my French here. But I've learned and doing my best to recognize Gabriela, because she doesn't respond well in that, and that's not a healthy moment for her. So what I can focus on, what I can control, is my delivery and my style and my tone and my volume, and recognize that and take a moment, if possible, even with a quick little touch. Hey, hon, let's cool off here a little bit. Trying to do those things. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then also respecting if she's done, and she's done. Then don't chase her upstairs. In the past, I would want to continue it and say, honey, come on, I'm still not clear. I mean, that's not healthy either. But creating an environment by my tone and the words I choose. Not saying you're wrong. What are you thinking? That or even being insulting, using that. Hey, that was stupid. those are not happy words for Gabriela to hear. So what I can do is control my tone, be tender, be kind, empathetic, respectful. And if she still doesn't want to address the issue at that moment, that's okay. Accepting. Take note of it. If it's really important to me, I'll bring it up another time. But often it's not. If you look at the big picture, it's really not.
Right.
You end up going down this rabbit hole for something that's not that important. So breaking that habit and self-awareness, something I wrote down as Matt was talking earlier, we're both very self-aware, as I know you guys are as well. It's that self-awareness in addition to the 3 C's, being aware. So being aware at that moment that when she's getting upset and doesn't want to talk, so I can choose in that moment to continue to escalate it selfishly, or I can de-escalate it, having that self-awareness and that discipline.
I love to hear both of you guys talking about that 3rd C. And kind of before we move on, I wanted to, a lot of times, a lot of people look at conflict in a relationship and they say, if it's going to work, I have to be what they want me to be, or I have to change in order to meet their expectation. So in your relationship, how do you guys work with that battle of meeting your spouse's expectation, but not changing yourself to be what they want? So how am I being clear?
Yeah,
Is that making sense to you?
It's a great question.
So how do you work through that? Because there's compromise. I believe compromise is everything. And it's kind of getting out of your agenda and your will to say what's for us. It's not win-lose, right? It's not you or me, it's us. So how have you all been able to navigate where you're winning for us and it's not one over the other?
I think the way that, I think when we first got married, we had that commitment to learning and getting better together. So if I was committed to learning, but he wasn't, I think it would be a challenge, because then if he feels like he has to change. But I think we've both grown. We both read books, his needs, her needs, 5 love languages. And so we know it's a mutual, commitment to each other. And so it just makes it easier, because I know that he's working to not change, but improve on things. I know I'm working on improving the way I communicate and things that will help our relationship. So I think we've both, from the early stages of our marriage, recognized that, yes, we had similar backgrounds in terms of our values and our family. And so we shared that, but we also had differences in how the styles of communication,
Sure.
love and commitment and trust and all of those things came into play for our relationship. So we knew we had to create our own.
Right.
style.
So what I hear you saying, Gabriela, is that the two of you are committed to a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And because you have the commitment to the mindset, it's helped you navigate differences or of approach or opinion or desired outcomes. But the commitment to that growth mindset is critical to navigate the conflict, because you want to learn how to do it better.
Yeah.
And as opposed to having to own that it's your way or Rob's way.
Right.
And so I heard that theme in there, and I think that's critical for people to understand really the commitment to the growth mindset, because you're gonna be, it's not static, right? The only constant is the change that you face based on your life and your career, your kids' experience. And so how do we grow together through that? And I think that you all have shared some great examples of that.
Absolutely. I appreciate hearing how you have come to the table to do all these 3 C's. And it is it's a growth over time. I mean, we start out, we have these expectations of each other, and we see that, oh, wow, that, this isn't how we want it to be. This isn't what I thought of when I thought of what commitment or even communication look like. And you grow together, you learn and you experience and you read, and you just keep working together to be better together. And I think that when you do that, you're better for each other, and you're better for your family as well. Mm-hmm. So we focus on these 3 C's because we believe that they're the most important, but we have other pillars that we believe are important as well. And we gave you a little list of those. And so what I'd love to do now is, outside of the 3 C's, have you, Rob, pick one that really speaks to you, one that you feel, other than the first 3. What's important to you? What one really resonates with you?
I would say number 13, security. Security resonates with me. I was the youngest child, and my sisters were older, and I was alone a lot, So at times when I'm not thinking well and not feeling well, I'll be insecure. And if Gabby does something, not on purpose, that makes me feel insecure in our relationship, it can impact me in the past. But I've shared that with her in a healthy manner, how important that is to me to feel secure and be reminded of that. What does that look like to me? So not just, hey, I want to be more secure. What specifically can she do to make me feel more secure?
And what are some things she has done to make you feel secure?
I can tell you a lot of things. She mentioned a few earlier with some notes, with a text, a call, her initiating an opportunity for us to do something special together, a date night or some exercise,
a daily morning hug. He's like, I didn't get my daily
morning hug. That's
just one a day, Gabriela? Just one a day?
There's only one morning in a day.
One morning.
One morning. We get plenty of hugs, but in the morning time, she comes downstairs because I'm always up first, and she gives me this beautiful hug. And it can last anywhere from 3 seconds to like 15 seconds, and just this big hug. And she smells so nice, and she's dressed for the day. And, and look at me in the eye afterwards, telling me, I love you, honey. I said, I love you too. And I said, your coffee's ready. And I got the boys' lunches, and it's just, that helps me feel secure, and I at one point I felt insecure of the fact that I needed that, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's a beautiful way to start the day, right? I mean, you've hugged each other, you've put a little into each other's bank account, and off you go.
So that was for Kim, to answer your question, security for me. And those were some of the ways, those are some examples of what it looks like for me.
Sure. What about you, Gabrielle? As you look at that list, what other quality rises to the top or is really high importance for you in your relationship?
For me, it's that trust and that honesty. And I think that's something that we constantly give importance to. And for you to feel secure, having trust that I'm going to be faithful, loyal, or whatever you want to call it, like you ensure or you state you're out and you're meeting other people, but you're always stating I'm happily married. You're always talking about your wife. You're always showing pictures. You have in the back of your phone pictures of your family. You talk about your family constantly. That it makes huge deposits into my trust and knowing that you're mine and you're going to be with me and you're committed to me. So for me, trust is big, and it's something that I think we work on every day to build on that trusting each other and trusting that we'll be there for each other whenever we're going through hard times or going through situations, trusting that we're going to be there to support each other. And the honesty part as well is knowing that you're truthful, that you are you when you're with me. You're not changing, you're not someone else, you're who you are. And you're comfortable being who you are around me, and I'm comfortable being who I am around you.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's beautiful, honey.
I love that. So we've got trust, and then we've got security, two of our other pillars. And what do you guys think you each do well in those areas? So looking at those other pillars outside the 3 C's, can you share, Gabrielle, you shared a little bit about what Rob does, to make you feel that trust and that being secure. Yeah. Rob, can you think of some of the things that Gabriela does for you? What does she do well in that area in your relationship for trust? What have you seen?
I know that Gabriela doesn't really put herself in situations she's an attractive, beautiful woman, and she's very mindful of what she wears and doesn't put herself where other men would perhaps hit on her, because I'm probably slightly jealous, I guess, very little, but I think I'm more jealous than she is. So for me, she doesn't invite that as attractive versus attracting. And if we're going to go out dancing, she may dress a little more provocative, but she normally does not dress that way because she's respectful of herself, and that's her style. But also she knows that for my trust, I know how some guys can be in the workplace or in society. So that's one of the things. I mean, I trust her unconditionally, but at the same time, she's very respectful of me and what I like. So that's one of the ways I can trust her.
Okay.
I do trust her.
And the other side of that, so that pillar, that's the fourth pillar in our platform, it's trust and honesty. And so how is the honesty side that goes, obviously trust and honesty are kind of hand in hand, right? Because if you're trusting, you're honest with each other. How has honesty played out in your relationship with each other? How's that shown up that you've seen, or what role does it have in your relationship?
I think, yeah, being the people that we are, that, showing who, how we really feel about certain things, and yeah, maybe your view about this, but knowing that you can, like Robert can share his views on certain things, and trust that I'm not going to judge him, or that I'm going to accepting each other, so that honesty, that builds on the honesty within the relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think honesty, we're real, we're authentic, we are who we are. We're honest not only with each other, behind closed doors, publicly. We're consistently, we're authentic and honest in every way by our actions and our words. And we live it. We walk the walk every day.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we've seen that demonstrated in so many ways, and you guys have been really great and open. And if you had to say, what's the biggest challenge that you face in your relationship? Like what seems to be the toughest thing that either you have to deal with repeatedly, or maybe just where you are right now in your relationship, and how do you do that?
I would say the second C, communication. I think it's something. It's an ongoing challenge for both, or opportunity for both of us, to keep understanding how to communicate more effectively with one another about whether it be serious issues or minor issues, being concise, clear, tender, respectful with our communication, because life is about communication. Whether it be facilitating with the kids or events, or even send an electronic message, really communicating with each other, I think it's critical. So now I know why you guys have it 3 C's, but it's critical, and it's an ongoing challenge, because not only does Gabriela come from a different home, she comes from a different culture. So there's aspects of that which come into our marriage. So those are things that I've identified. I'm very open to other cultures, and I've lived in other cultures, but at the same, often will default to our culture, and those little idiosyncrasies can creep in. So we have to be aware of that as a couple. So the communication is something that's an ongoing opportunity for us. I wouldn't say it's bad. I'm proud of where we are. We've come a long way, but we have to keep working on that. It has to be top of mind, as they say.
Sure.
That's a great point. You brought up having a difference in your marriage and culture. How has that played into your marriage? How has that impacted your marriage?
I think initially I underestimated the impact of it. I underestimated the difference of how different and significant it could be, and I downplayed it. But then I realized that in Latin America or in the Caribbean and some of the world that she came from, Venezuela, the men have a different role. For a specific example, here's a specific example. My sisters, when they saw how Gabriela would take care of me, like in terms of food, they would look at that as subservient. Okay, here in the U.S., some women would say, but Gabriela, and part of her culture, she wants to please her husband with the food and take care of him, with it, sewing a button that comes off. It's not about like he's more powerful than me. It's just a way of showing love and expressing that. It's not bad, and she likes to show love that way. And then often the husband is in her home, and her parents' home is very different than some homes here. It's not better or worse, but different. So we have to be aware of that. We've taken it to a different version of 2.0. We take a nice hybrid mix of that and made it our own culture. So we keep the Hispanic and the Latin culture in our home, but we also take what we think is the best of both and made it our home. Does that make sense, hon?
I agree. I think also the way we've communicated, like at first it was like lost in translation. Well, this is in my culture, this is this is not a big deal, or whatever I said. Right. It's not an insult, but for him it would be like, whoa. So that's right. So I think that was part of our initial maybe 3-4 years of our marriage. It was like, oh, that's not what I meant to say, but in my culture this is what it would mean, and don't take it that way. And But I think that, yeah, we've learned to, we've evolved, and I've become this version, where I come from, but also of where I am, and keeping up with the times. And my children are now, part of this culture. So it's really kind of growing and embracing the goods, keeping some of my culture, and just evolving into this hybrid version of how we communicate and how we accept each other, and how we go through some of these tough conversations. I think for me as well, communication is our biggest opportunity, because we've learned, we have rules, we have kind of like a playbook on how we're gonna talk about these tough issues, but we still sometimes end up in that place that we're like, we got here, how did we get here again? But it's like, okay, we need to continue to work on it, and just it's our biggest opportunity, how we communicate. And
sure, yeah, communication.
I love watching the two of you sort of develop that 2.0 hybrid, because I see your boys who love Latin music, and I see, Rob speaking fluent Spanish, and I just love how you've come together, and even some of your children speaking Spanish, and I love how you've come together and you have created your own culture, so to speak. Right? And you've taken the great from both sides and melded them together, and you've really raised your children in such a healthy way. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being great examples.
Beautiful combination.
Yeah.
A great way of taking what's unique about each of you and bringing it together in a way that works for you, not because it was what you thought it was and it has to be that same way, but really developing your own and being fluid. It's not a fixed, right? I mean, we have rules we try to play by and work with, but you're willing to have that growth mindset and flow with it. I love to see that, and you guys have done it beautifully. And so my hat goes off to you. 20 years of marriage. I know that you knew each other before then, and that's a commitment. And you guys are committed to the process and the joy of learning. And there's so much care and respect between the two of you. We all have our moments. I know there's things that we don't see about your relationship, and likewise, I my favorite quote is, "I have feet of clay." I fail every day, and say, "Gosh, I maybe could have said that better or done that differently." And it's easy to look back, but instead, you guys are looking forward and thinking and communicating lovingly how that can be better. And I'd love to kind of end, if we could, with you guys on if you guys could each give one piece of advice to yourselves before you were married, what would that one piece be? If you say, "Oh my gosh, if I'd started off this marriage with knowing and doing this," what would that be for each of you to your unmarried selves?
Yeah, I think for me is showing more of that affection, because it's something that, I thought, hey, if I just do acts of service, he will know that I love him. If I just have this all ready for him, he will know that I love him. So if I knew that, words and those are so important, and to others, not just him, but just to, others, because people have different love languages. If I would have known that, I think I would have applied that from the beginning. Just it doesn't take much, right? It's just building that into your habit of showing people how much you appreciate them by telling them, versus assuming that just, hey, I was there for you, that showed that I loved you. I came to your birthday party. That's showing that I love you. But saying it more, it's something that I'm practicing more, and it's also something that, I wish I did that 20 years ago with the people that I love, and would have brought that to the relationship.
Some of us just need to hear it.
Right.
We need to hear it.
Yeah.
For me, it would be keep dating. Everybody's madly in love when they get married, and it's a honeymoon period. But really, you have to keep dating, keep it spicy, keep it fresh, adventure. Keep dating your wife and fall in love over and over again. You need to keep falling in love with her. You know, when we're on those first few dates, we listen to every word. We're intently, we're respectful. Kissing her on the lips. I joke around a lot with friends of mine. Like, are you kissing your wife on the lips? You better kiss her on the lips.
I love
keep
that.
Kissing her. Keep kissing, baby. Keep kissing.
On the lips.
Keep fresh. So keep dating her, making those special moments, making her feel, you know, special. I don't have to bring flowers just on her birthday and Valentine's Day. It should be just out of nowhere.
Just because.
Just because. Keep it fresh. And it's not about throwing money. It's about being thoughtful, taking the time, and making those moments. Having a picnic or having that glass of wine outside. If the kids, people make excuses. I have no time. I'm so busy. I've got 3 kids. Well, we have 3 kids. I'm an entrepreneur. Gabriela works. We make the time.
Yeah.
Right.
You make time for what's important to you.
Right.
And so for me, it's keep dating it, keep it special. That's why I appreciate so much what y'all are doing with this podcast and giving a roadmap to other men. I'll speak on behalf of the male species. Men need to be hit over the head. And Matthew has been a shining example for me as a friend and a brother, as a mentor. But a lot of people need to hear this. A lot of it's obvious. Once you hear it, you're like, oh my goodness. But for me, I thank God that I had the drive to learn on my own through books and through friends and through podcasts. I have a burning desire. I mean, I'm hungry to learn more. I'm not sure why. That could be another podcast. But for this one, I'm blessed that I have it. And my advice for myself 20 years ago, but keep dating her and falling in love over and over again.
Great advice. No doubt. And a fun process.
Fun process.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Awesome.
having fun together is so important. Create the fun. Like you're going to do yoga on the beach. It's an activity.
Exactly.
It's something fun that you can do together, especially when you know what the other person loves. Plan a fun activity that they love.
Right. So it's creating those opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lots of growth. Well, we're so grateful to the two of you for sharing,
Yes.
pulling back the curtain a little bit and let us
Thank you.
learn about how you got started and what mindset you brought to your relationship. You guys are a fantastic example of a kick-ass couple based on not just the things we talked about today, but so many other. We have to have you back another time so we can dig a little deeper and learn some more of those tips and tricks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's
After
good.
20 years, I know there's a lot more to unpack. And so we definitely want to have you guys back on. And
Absolutely.
Everybody deserves to have an incredible relationship. And if we can talk about how to do it and share with each other and build each other up, we're going to have more fantastic kick-ass relationships where people are learning how to prioritize their number one relationship. So
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thanks for having
Look
us.
forward to having you
Thanks for
back.
having us, guys.
that's all we've got for this episode of the Kick-Ass Couples podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's upcoming book, Kick-Ass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com and we'll get it over to you right away.
Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.